Ever wonder who the central bank for central banks is? Today, we're plunging into the, well, intriguing realm of the Bank for International Settlements, or BIS.
Welcome. Yeah, you're joining us for a really focused exploration, sort of designed to illuminate the BIS. Our goal is to, dissect our source materials and
And
pull out the most vital and maybe surprising insights about this powerful yet often overlooked global institution.
Right. So, for those maybe less familiar, what exactly is the BIS in a nutshell? I mean, it's an international financial institution.
Mhm.
It acts as a bank for central banks.
That's it. Founded in Basel, Switzerland, way back in 1930, and it counts 63 member central banks from right across the globe among its owners.
Okay.
And throughout our discussion today, we'll be unraveling the BIS's core functions. These include its work in fostering monetary and financial stability, its really significant role as a research center,
Mm-hmm.
the specialized banking services it provides only to central banks, so not available to the general public, and its fundamental support for international financial cooperation.
And why should this pique your interest, you might ask? Well, the BIS has played a role, a pretty key one sometimes, in navigating major financial turbulence. Think the 2008 crisis, the recent pandemic.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's also deeply involved right now in shaping the conversation around central bank digital currencies, or CBDCs.
Mhm.
As we delve deeper, I think we'll encounter some truly fascinating, maybe even unexpected aspects of how it operates.
Definitely.
Okay, let's maybe start by tracing its origins. Where did it come from?
Right. So the BIS was set up in 1930 with a very, very specific initial job. It was all about managing the complex reparations payments that Germany had to make after World War I, as laid out by the Treaty of Versailles.
Wow.
Think of it like the financial plumbing needed for a major international settlement back then.
So it started by dealing with the really intricate financial mess left by a global conflict. That's quite a weighty beginning,
It really was.
but its purpose broadened quite significantly over time, didn't it?
Oh, absolutely. The BIS sort of strategically adapted its focus. It evolved into this key facilitator of cooperation among the world's central banks. Its bigger mission really became the pursuit of global financial stability, which is, a huge ongoing job.
Right.
And the shift, I think, it reflects a growing understanding of just how interconnected national economies really are.
Now, this is where things might take a turn into less familiar territory for some.
Hmm.
There's a chapter in its history, its involvement during World War II, that often raises eyebrows. What can you tell us about that period?
That's a complex one.
Mhm.
During the Second World War, the BIS actually maintained relationships with both the Allied and Axis powers.
Both. Wow.
Yeah, and this included the really delicate issue of managing gold reserves. Some of that gold is suspected to have, well, originated from nations under Nazi occupation.
Oof.
So this period, understandably, remains a subject of intense historical scrutiny. It raises some difficult questions about the institution's actions during, a time of massive global conflict.
Definitely brings up questions. Okay, bringing us more towards the present. Let's look at how this global institution is actually structured. You mentioned 63 member central banks own it. Can you give us a sense of who the major players are in that group?
Sure. The ownership is, like you said, diverse, those 63 central banks. But among them are some of the most influential financial authorities in the world. You're talking the Federal Reserve in the U.S.,
Right.
the European Central Bank, the Bank of England. These institutions, just because of the sheer size of the economies they oversee, naturally carry significant weight within the BIS structure.
And how is an organization with such a widespread membership actually governed? I mean, who's calling the shots?
Well, the BIS is governed by a board of directors, and interestingly, this board is primarily made up of the governors of the member central banks themselves.
Ah,
So this direct representation kind of ensures that the leadership of the BIS is closely aligned with the top monetary policy decision makers from the world's major economies.
and it's not solely based in Switzerland, right? I understand it has a bit of a broader geographical reach now.
Absolutely. To foster stronger connections with different parts of the globe, the BIS has set up regional offices. There's one in Hong Kong SAR, focusing on Asia Pacific, and another in Mexico City, serving the Americas.
Interesting.
This physical presence really underlines its commitment to its global mandate. So yeah, with this kind of structure and this global network, what exactly does the BIS do on a sort of day-to-day basis?
Good question. Let's get into those core functions. First up, banking services. Now, you made it clear these aren't for, the average person on the street. who exactly benefits from these services?
Yeah, that's a really key distinction. The BIS provides its specialized banking services exclusively to central banks and certain other international financial institutions. It absolutely does not offer accounts or financial products to the general public or to private companies. Its clients are other official institutions, period.
Okay, got it. So what kind of services are we talking about then? Is it just basic account holding?
No, it's a bit more sophisticated than that. The BIS holds reserve assets for its member central banks. It also provides a range of investment services to help them manage their financial resources effectively.
Hmm.
This is particularly valuable, you can imagine, for central banks in smaller and developing economies. They might not have the same level of in-house expertise for really complex asset management.
Right.
And another thing, the BIS offers secure facilities for storing gold reserve.
Gold storage too.
Okay.
Interesting. Moving on to monetary and financial stability. How does the BIS actively work towards achieving this pretty significant goal?
Well, the BIS plays a vital role here by facilitating discussions and analysis that help central banks coordinate their monetary policies. This involves looking at key tools like interest rates, strategies for controlling inflation, that sort of thing.
So a forum for discussion.
Exactly. By providing a confidential forum for this dialogue, the BIS contributes, hopefully, to a more stable global financial environment. Plus, it acts as a kind of central point for identifying and addressing potential risks that could, threaten the stability of the whole system.
And it's not just about reacting when things go wrong, right? There's a big emphasis on research too.
Oh, absolutely. A huge emphasis. The BIS is a highly respected source of research on a whole range of critical topics. Things like the nitty-gritty of monetary policy, financial regulation frameworks, macro-prudential policy, which is about the stability of the whole financial system.
Right, take your picture.
Exactly. And increasingly, the implications of digital currencies. This research often feeds directly into the thinking and policy choices of central banks around the world.
You mentioned the BIS Innovation Hub earlier. That sounds pretty forward-looking. What's its main focus?
Yeah, the Innovation Hub was specifically set up to explore this evolving landscape where finance and technology meet. Fintech, basically. Its work focuses on those developments and, crucially, on the potential and the challenges of central bank digital currencies, CBDCs. The hub actually undertakes practical projects. A good example is Project Enbridge. That involves the central banks of China, the UAE, Thailand, and Hong Kong, and they're exploring the possibilities of cross-border CBDC payments.
Wow.
What's really notable is the tangible experimentation happening under the BIS's guidance.
So the BIS isn't just writing papers about these new technologies. It's actively involved in actually testing them out in the real world or close to it.
Precisely.
Now, the final key role you mentioned was regulation and supervision. Does the BIS have the authority to directly regulate banks itself?
That's an important clarification. No, the BIS itself doesn't function as a direct regulatory body. It doesn't have legally binding enforcement powers like a national supervisor would. However, it plays a critical role in hosting and supporting key international organizations that do set these regulatory standards.
Ah, okay. Could you elaborate a bit on which organizations those are?
Sure. The most prominent one is probably the Basel Committee on Banking Supervision, the BCBS.
Heard of that one.
Right. This committee is responsible for establishing global banking regulations. A key example is the Basel III framework. That sets out the required levels of capital banks need to hold, kind of like financial airbags for the banking system to absorb losses.
Gotcha.
Then there's the Financial Stability Board, the FSB. That works to coordinate financial regulation across different countries and sectors, keep everyone roughly on the same page.
Right.
And finally, the Committee on Payments and Market Infrastructures, or CPMI. That focuses on ensuring global payment systems are safe and efficient.
So, okay, the BIS doesn't have direct legal teeth, but the standards developed under its roof, so to speak, are widely adopted by national regulators. That gives the BIS a form of, well, indirect influence, doesn't it?
Yeah. Precisely. That's a great way to put it. While these frameworks aren't international treaties with the force of law, their widespread acceptance and implementation by member countries grant the BIS significant leverage. It has real soft power in shaping the global financial environment.
Okay.
If you think about the broader implications, you can see how the BIS operates. It works through fostering consensus and the power of these shared international norms.
Right. So we've established what the BIS is and broadly what it does. Now let's turn to its influence. You referred to it earlier as the central bank for central banks. That really implies a considerable level of authority or weight.
It does. And the BIS's reputation as, generally speaking, a neutral and exceptionally well-informed institution lends significant weight to its analysis and its recommendations. Even though, as we said, it lacks direct enforcement powers, its insights are highly influential. Why? Because it has access to comprehensive global financial data,
Hmm.
and it's seen as this trusted platform for confidential discussions among the world's central bank leaders. This makes it a pivotal, though often kind of unseen, actor in shaping where global finance is heading.
Given that level of influence, are there underlying geopolitical currents at play? I mean, who ultimately holds the most sway within the BIS? Is it balanced?
That's a very insightful question, and it's constantly evolving. Historically, yes, Western powers, the U.S., the EU countries, Japan, have wielded considerable influence within the BIS.
Makes sense.
However, the increasing economic prominence of nations like China is definitely shifting things. You see the People's Bank of China actively involved in initiatives like Project Enbridge, for instance. That signals a change in dynamics.
Yeah.
The BIS essentially has to operate at the intersection of these diverse economic philosophies. The U.S. generally pushing a more liberalized capital market approach, while China's financial system operates under much greater state guidance.
So the BIS has to navigate those differences.
Exactly. It needs to find ways to achieve consensus, or at least a functional cooperation between these differing perspectives.
This leads us neatly into what you earlier called the intriguing aspects. Let's maybe explore some of the criticisms and controversies that surround the BIS. The idea of it being an elitist and opaque body is one that comes up quite a bit.
Yes, that perception of the BIS as elitist and opaque is a significant point of discussion. Its decisions are fundamentally made in private, behind closed doors, by a relatively small group of individuals who aren't directly elected.
Right.
So that naturally leads to questions about public accountability. And to add to that, the BIS benefits from international immunity.
Immunity.
Yes, which shields it from direct legal action or intervention by national governments. This, understandably, raises concerns about transparency and democratic oversight for such a powerful global body.
And it's not just about the process, is it? It's also about whose interests might be getting prioritized. There's criticism about a possible bias towards wealthier economies.
Precisely. That's another common critique. Critics often argue that the BIS's priorities and its recommendations tend to align more closely with the interests of the big, advanced industrialized economies and the large international banks headquartered there.
Mm-hmm.
There's some historical context for this concern, too. The BIS faced criticism in the past for supporting austerity measures, which some argue disproportionately harmed developing nations. So it prompts you to ask, whose perspectives are really most represented in the BIS's agenda?
We touched on the historical controversies earlier, but that BIS involvement with Nazi gold during World War II seems like a particularly dark chapter.
It absolutely represents a deeply problematic period in the BIS's history, no
Right.
question. Its continued financial dealings with Nazi Germany throughout the war, including, as we mentioned, handling gold likely looted from occupied territories. Well, that has had a lasting negative impact on its reputation.
I can imagine.
And while the BIS has since acknowledged this history, it definitely remains a subject of significant ethical and historical debate.
Then there's this other concern, that the BIS's actions might actually contribute to a centralization of monetary power globally. What are the potential implications of that for individual nations?
Yeah, the argument here is that by promoting certain global financial norms and policies like the Basel rules, for example, the BIS could inadvertently limit the autonomy of individual countries, limit their ability to set their own economic policies that might differ from the global consensus.
How so?
Well, nations that deviate significantly from BIS-endorsed approaches might face, say, negative reactions in international financial markets. This could potentially push countries toward a more uniform global economic model, which some critics argue is a kind of one-size-fits-all neoliberal approach, whether it suits them or not.
Right, potentially reducing national policy space.
That's the concern, yes.
And looking forward, the BIS's growing role in shaping the future of money through these CBDCs is also generating considerable discussion and, frankly, some unease, isn't it?
Absolutely. The BIS is right at the forefront of researching and, in many ways, advocating for central bank digital currencies. Now, proponents emphasize potential benefits like efficiency, maybe financial inclusion.
Sure.
But critics voice serious concerns. They worry about the potential for massively increased surveillance of financial activity.
Yeah, it's a big one.
A further concentration of power within central authorities, and potentially the erosion of financial privacy as we know it. Some commentators have really pointed out that the BIS's active role here is, in effect, laying the groundwork for a potentially huge shift in our financial systems, maybe without enough public debate.
Interesting point. Finally, the BIS often operates with a relatively low public profile compared to, say, the IMF or the World Bank. Is this intentional, do you think? And what are the consequences of this lower visibility?
That's a good observation. Its lower public profile does mean it generally receives less public scrutiny and less media coverage, less political debate compared to those other institutions. Now, you could argue this might facilitate more discreet, perhaps more effective, behind-the-scenes work and diplomacy.
Maybe.
But the flip side is that an institution wielding such significant global influence operates largely outside the direct awareness, let alone the accountability of the public it ultimately affects. So this lack of visibility itself becomes a point of contention for some observers. Is it good governance?
So, to kind of bring it all together then, the BIS is clearly this multifaceted institution. It's got a complex history, significant, often unseen influence on global finance. It serves as a crucial platform for central bank cooperation, a vital research hub, and as we've discussed, its actions and its legacy also draw considerable scrutiny and criticism.
Yeah.
It's definitely far more than just a bank. It's like a central node in the whole network of global finance.
Precisely put. And understanding the BIS, I think, is increasingly relevant for you, the listener. In a world that's navigating growing financial interconnectedness, rapid technological changes in finance, AI, fintech, and these fundamental debates about the future of our monetary systems, CBDCs, de-dollarization talk,
Right.
the BIS will undoubtedly continue to play a central, albeit often still behind the scenes, role in all of that.
So, okay, here's a final point maybe for you to ponder. As the BIS continues to shape this evolving landscape of global finance, how do we ensure that such influential institutions operate with, well, sufficient transparency and accountability, especially given the profound impact their decisions can ultimately have on the financial lives of individuals everywhere? It's definitely a crucial question, I think, to keep in mind as things develop.